In today's episode, we're joined by Kavi Kardos. Kavi is an altruistic SEO evangelist with 10 years of experience leading organic search strategies for top companies in entertainment, cybersecurity, education, and beyond. A former Mozer, she is the creator of Moz Academy's technical SEO certification and has lent her expertise to Whiteboard Friday, Brighton SEO, Search Summit, and PubCon. Kavi is currently the director of organic growth at Client Boost. In her spare time, she can be found hosting pub quizzes, playing poker, and watching baseball with a good beer in hand. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by FireUsMarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. Welcome to the show, Kavi.
Thanks for having me, Eli. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. As we were just kind of talking offline, you have a lot of experience in SEO, and especially with being on Moz and speaking at some of the bigger events. I'm really excited to learn from you. And as a part of this SEO series, I think it's important for people to understand not just like how SEO works, the technical on-page, off-page, some of the other interviews that we're doing as well, but also if you are in SEO, it can be really difficult to convince some of your leaders, owners, executives that it's as important as we think it is in the SEO world. So I think this is a really fun topic to dive into, talking about how to get your companies to adopt SEO even when there's some pushback. Before we jump into that, though, let's talk a little bit about who Kavi is. So where'd you grow up? What do you want to be when you were little? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, sure. Okay. So I grew up in Houston, Texas. I live in Austin now. I went to college at Emerson College in Boston, which is a film school primarily. That's what most people know it as. I went there because at the time, at least, it was the only undergraduate program in the country with publishing in the name of it. So
Wow.
I really wanted to work in like traditional book and magazine publishing. I wanted to sit in Boston or New York City at a big oak desk and like edit with a quill pen. That was my dream. And I also wanted to be a writer sort of alongside that. So I went to, a program that actually specializes in publishing instead of just sort of the generic English major, and learned a ton. Emerson's kind of like a trade school for the arts. So learned a ton while I was there, and then graduated college in 2009, right in the middle of a big, gorgeous economic slump. So not only was it hard to get a job in general in any industry, it was especially difficult in publishing, which was at the same time kind of dying out as a traditional practice. Obviously, we're still publishing books and magazines, but the way that happens is extremely different from the way it was like 50 years ago, which is what I kind of had in my head when I joined that program. So luckily, though, the writing background, the research skills that I learned there, and also just sort of like the psychology that they focus on as part of that program really helped me get a start in marketing. I learned SEO at kind of a link building farm, honestly, not the kind of place that still exists anymore necessarily, but I learned SEO pretty quickly as soon as I switched over from publishing to marketing. From the Moz Beginner's Guide, like so many of us do. And really sort of fell in love with the mix of analytical and creative that you get to be when you work in this field. And just kind of grew up from there. So I started working in SEO in about 2014. And since then, I've worked mostly in-house, I would say. But I did sort of get an early start in agency and have been back in the agency side of things for the last couple of years.
It's fun to interview, all sorts of different experts from around the world, because it's so interesting how your background most backgrounds can really relate to SEO, right? So like your content background is heavy in SEO. I interviewed Chris Long yesterday, and he went into finance, and with the finance background, it doesn't directly relate, but knowing spreadsheets and formulas and thinking if this then that really does relate over. And then other people I've interviewed that have development background and coding, they're very heavy into the technical side of SEO. And so I love seeing how people come from just their normal life and what they wanted to do, and evolving into an awesome SEO. So content was heavy in your beginning.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit before we go into the SEO stuff about what it was like for you to be not only at like the downturn in the economy in 2007, 8, and 9, but like what was it like to be in that industry when it really was going from analog to digital? Like that's everyone had their predictions, everyone had their assumptions. What was that like?
I would say that I don't know that I ever really was exposed to or had to work in an analog environment. I think I came along to like specifically to SEO at a time when, people were pretty much getting the hang of like how this affects your website, what you should be focusing on digitally in order to make
Yeah.
or I guess companies were starting to think about more their digital presence, not just like who are we as a brand and uh, what do we want to say about ourselves generally? What's our philosophy? Sort of that more traditional marketing, and
Yeah.
thinking more about what's our digital presence? How do
Hmm.
we present ourselves online? So, and it's funny because now we're kind of going back in the other direction again and thinking more about brand and, just how we
Hmm.
talk about ourselves in general and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I think I sort of joined SEO at a time when that idea was gaining popularity and people were starting to understand, oh, our website needs to kind of look and feel like this in order to really
Yeah.
be successful. And um, obviously that's evolved a ton over time. But yeah, I think I joined at an interesting time. That was sort of when those things were just starting to come into popularity.
Yeah. What a fun time to join too.
It was,
There's,
yeah.
yeah, there was a lot going on in there. I remember those years very clearly. I remember, paid ads was just starting back
Hmm.
then, on Google and Yahoo. Yahoo had a lot of learning and mistakes. I don't know if you were around for any of that, but, and then I do remember I was at an agency when, um, Facebook, advertising happened. Like, and
Yeah,
they,
I was about to say that was the other big
yeah,
thing going through a lot of changes right around then.
yeah, and nobody knew what to do. So I remember in the agency, there was already a guy in the company they liked, and they're like, "Hey, go sit in this corner and figure it out. Like, create a package, figure it out." Nobody really knew what to do, and I mean, so he was a pioneer in doing that. So a lot of fun times, a lot of fun changes. In the beginning, it was
Yeah.
all about links from like link farms, like you're saying, and that was acceptable at the time, right? And it worked, and you could get ranking real fast. And then Panda and Penguin came out and crushed a lot of that, and you had to reevaluate how you did your content. And then it was really long content beat everything, and
Hmm.
it's not about long content anymore. It's not about crazy link building anymore. Like you said, it's more about the brand. Obviously, content is important, link building is important, but it's just a lot different, and it's evolved a lot since, a decade ago for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny that you bring up Facebook. I've been preparing for a conference upcoming in September and learning a lot about the evolution of Facebook and kind of how it's gotten worse, over the years. So, like, what
Yeah.
happened to Facebook? And especially looking at like Cory Doctorow's theory of enshittification. Sorry for the swear. What that looks like and how it
Uh-huh.
happened to Facebook. And yeah, I'm looking back now at my own career and seeing how it sort of evolved alongside what was going on there, especially with their advertising model, has been really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Kavi, what are you working on right now that excites you?
Right now, I am. So my job is interesting. I'm sort of split between our SEO team in agency and then doing marketing and sales for the agency itself.
Hmm.
So I spend about 50% of my time, mentoring our SEO strategists, working with them on their client needs, and sort of helping to monitor those accounts, making sure we're delivering the best SEO service we can as an agency.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other 50% of my time is kind of treating Client Boost as an SEO client of ourselves. So,
Yeah.
you call it eating our own dog food. That phrase is sort of what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, working a lot on our own content engine, which needs a lot of help right now, and
Mm-hmm.
our own technical foundation and all that stuff, and sales as well. So, I'd say the thing I'm most excited about right now is just how much I still see prospects coming in and having, first of all, a need for SEO. That's nice
Mm-hmm.
that there are still
Yeah.
companies out there looking for SEO services and recognizing that that's something they still need.
Mhm.
And also having a ton of opportunity for SEO. I'll dig into a client site that says, "Oh yeah, we've been working for an agency or working with an SEO agency for the past 2 years," and I'll go and look at their robots file and it's a mess. So
Yeah.
it just the amount of, I mean, to some degree, that's not great to see because you want agencies to be doing good work, but
Yeah.
it's nice when there's a ton of opportunity to be uncovered and content strategy to build and all of that still. So it sort of reassures me that SEO is not dead and definitely not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. If there weren't bad agencies, there would be less clients for you and me for sure.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing how many bad agencies there are.
Yeah, we've been working with a new client, a couple new clients actually, who have come to us and said that their agencies have specifically said SEO is dead. We can't help you anymore. And
Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess if you don't want to make any more money, sure.
yeah, I mean,
That's
and any like SEO who's been in the industry for any amount of time could look at the website and within 10 minutes with free tools
right.
understand how much there can be done, right? And I'll give you one quick example, and then we'll move on to the next section. But this agency helped them rebuild the website, and when they did it, they redirected all of the old pages to the homepage, every single one of
I
them,
We just had the same
thousands.
thing. We literally just had the exact same thing with somebody who came to us. That's so crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have an e-commerce site that just went through a platform migration and their agency helped give them a big boost by redirecting every single page to their homepage too. That's
yeah,
amazing that that still happens.
yeah. Well, so I mean, they completely crashed because of this. Like
Yeah, of
they
course.
went
Yeah.
from like 15,000 sessions a day to like 400 sessions a
Yeah.
day or less. And which is great for us, right? Like we went and we fixed those, and we got rid of like 7,000 redirects and
Hmm.
redirected the other 6,000 to the right pages.
Hmm.
And me and my business partner went and looked at the data today, and it's only been a couple of weeks, and you can see it's like flat, 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 like hockey stick growth
Yeah.
already, and
Yeah, which is
some
nice because you
basic
get to be
stuff.
the big hero, without
Absolutely.
a whole bunch of effort, but still sort of disheartening that that kind of thing it seems
Yeah,
to
I
be,
know.
either sneaks past people or someone thinks that's the way to do it or
I
whatever.
know. I know. I'd also like to applaud you for doing SEO on the agency side,
And we
like
need
for the
it.
agency work, right?
Everybody needs
Because
it.
for sure, and sometimes it is a little bit sad to see these SEO agencies who preach, 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 but they never
Hmm.
practice. They never take it on their own and stuff. And so, me as an agency, and it sounds like you guys as an agency, I'm trying to take that as serious as possible. If I'm
Yeah.
teaching about schema, I'm going to go make sure all my pages have schema. If I'm teaching
Yeah.
about writing, good content, I'm going to make sure I write good content so that if um, if we send out a proposal, they send it to the clients say, well, I'm working with these three other agencies. These other agencies, one easy way to win is to go and look at their site and be like, hey, well, they're not even doing it themselves.
Hmm.
So my goal is for that not to ever happen, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got a client roadmap or client quote unquote roadmap, just like everybody else. And right now my fear is we haven't gotten through enough of it for clients to do like what you said, go through it and
Yeah.
see like, well, how come they're not doing this on their own site? I keep wanting to be like, we're getting there. We're
Yeah.
working on it. Like it's on the roadmap. It's happening.
Well, SEO takes time for sure still.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the topic of our conversation today is talking through how some companies really struggle adopting SEO and really putting it into their game plan, their overall goal. They might favor these other marketing channels like paid ads because it's instant gratification
Hmm.
over SEO, which is long term. So if we dive into that, let's just kind of talk high level first. Like, why do you think these C levels or some of these companies struggle in corporate America to really adopt SEO as like a main channel that they should focus on?
I think this has entirely to do with a lack of education and a lack of modern understanding of SEO. I think if anyone who says that SEO is not what we need right now, or it's not going to help us, or it's useless, not worth the cost, whatever, probably doesn't understand what we mean when we say SEO in
Yeah.
2024. And the first hurdle for me is always getting past that. Is, when I've in-house positions, especially, but now with clients too, the biggest hurdle is okay. Now I'm not talking about putting the right keywords in the right places on the page. That's not what I
Yeah.
mean. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the health of your website in
Yeah.
general. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And the line that I like to use that usually helps reset the perspective is that if you have a website, which everybody does, then
Mm-hmm.
that website is going to affect the way, the makeup of that website is going to affect the way that every single person in your organization does business, which
Mm-hmm.
means that SEO affects the way that every person in your organization does business. So there is not a department and there is not a person on your team that SEO doesn't touch or influence in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So to say, to wave it away and say, this is not important, this is not something we're going to concern ourselves with, just means that they don't understand that concept. And I think it's our job to help, the C suite or whoever it is understand how SEO gets integrated or how proper SEO gets integrated in
Yeah.
the organization from top to bottom.
What do you think are like maybe the top three misconceptions that owners or C levels have about SEO? Like you said, lack of understanding, lack of education. What do you think like the top three things are they lack in education?
I think the overall goals of SEO are one thing. So I think there's a misconception for most people that what we do is bring in traffic and that's where it stops. We bring eyeballs to the website and they may or may not convert and good luck, I hope they buy something. But
Mm-hmm.
good SEO should be driving towards conversion as well. That your top KPI is not traffic, that's a vanity metric. Your top
Yeah.
KPI is conversion or the bottom line, revenue, whatever it is that you're tracking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the biggest one. And then the idea that we spend most of our time thinking about how many other websites are linking to us and how many keywords we have in what places. Not that we aren't concerned with those things, but we there's so much more to it than that. So I think when they say, "Oh, it's just this and this," I can do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that a lot, especially from smaller businesses. The
Yeah.
CEO thinks they're going to do SEO themselves. And of course, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
do it right, no CEO has time to do what you or I are doing on a daily basis.
Can I add to that real fast before you move on to
Yeah.
the next point? So I 100% agree with you. And one way that has really opened my eyes recently to that is that I started this SEO series in the podcast. The Digital Revolution podcast is not about just SEO. It's about the digital revolution, right? All
Hmm.
marketing channels, everything that impacts the end user experience on a digital side. And I thought I need to do an SEO series because there is a lack of knowledge out there, even within the SEO world, about how much goes into SEO. And I started out
Hmm.
just saying, I just threw a number out there and said, I'm just going to do, a 10-part series and we're going to talk about everything SEO. And the more I started laying it out and the more I started talking to experts like you and thinking through it, like it's now I have over 30 different
Yeah.
topics and 30 experts talking about, like, there's overlap. There for sure there's overlap, but talking about one specific thing. And if I took all of those, put them into one big book, like SEO can be complicated and it's not something that a CEO or leader can do by themselves. So I
Yeah, definitely
100%
not.
agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, and it's not something that can be automated either. That's the other thing we hear a lot is like, well, ChatGPT can handle our SEO. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a real tragedy, I
It
think.
sure is. Yeah.
That so many folks think that these days, especially. Um, so yeah, just the misconception that SEO is easy. It doesn't have to be, you said it can be complicated. Definitely can.
Sure.
The concept is so simple, just the overall, what are we trying to do with SEO is so simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy to do. And it doesn't mean it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to get it right. And I think the other big misconception I see a lot is we're already spending money on paid search or paid social or
Yeah.
creative or whatever discipline it is. So we either don't need SEO or we can't afford it or there's no way that these things are going to integrate. We're handling this aspect of our marketing and that's all we can do right now. We'll
Yeah.
worry about SEO later or never or something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, the idea that it's like fully separate from other aspects of digital marketing and that if you hired a full team, you'd have like your SEOs working over here in this corner and your paid search people over here in this corner, and never the twain shall meet. Like that's really not how it works anymore either.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are all really good points, and I think that I think you're spot on. I think that well, let me ask you this. So now that we know sort of the top three concerns that executives or owners have, as an SEO in a company like that, how would you recommend that they approach their leadership to overcome those challenges?
So I think the number one thing is always education. And I know that you're not going to be able to get your CEO and or your whole C-suite in a room and say like, "All right, let me give you an SEO 101 presentation." That's not necessarily what I mean by education,
Yeah.
although if you can do that, you should. That
Mm-hmm.
would be a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, but first of all, this is sort of taking a step back from your question, but I would say anyone who's working in-house, or if you've got your choice of clients, I think this is an important concern here too. I would never ever take an in-house SEO job where the leadership in that organization was not receptive to learning about SEO.
Yeah.
If that's, and again, not like these huge long sessions or anything like that, but if they're not trusting me to be the expert and to say, here's why this is important, let's have an ongoing dialogue about um, what I'm going to be doing and why and how this affects everybody else and what this is going to do for our business, then I would straight up not work in a company like that. So I
Yeah.
think that's step number one. But if you have found yourself in a good situation where they are receptive to your ideas and they do want to hear about what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it, um, educating about uh, like how this can point to overall business goals and how what I'm going to do, how the items in this roadmap here are going to drive toward the bottom line or whatever other like secondary metrics we might be aiming for.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. If you can say, see this line here, this initiative, this line item here, this is going to help us increase our lead quality or lead volume by X% over the next 6 months, your CEO is not going to say no to that as long as you've got
Right.
the data to back it up. So being able to tie back to actual business goals and not just say, I'm going to boost our traffic. Nobody cares about that. They care about the bottom line.
Yeah. So along those same notes, what do you think are the biggest risks of not doing SEO?
Your competitors are doing it. And
Yep.
your competitors, at
Yep.
least one of your competitors, is probably doing it quite well.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's happened, as SEO has evolved and as more people have gotten involved in the realm of SEO, I think there are developers and content marketers and even people working in other disciplines of digital marketing who don't even realize that the work they're doing is basically SEO work,
Mm-hmm.
UX and CRO and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, because there are so many people thinking about those kinds of concerns on a day to day basis, especially at like a larger company with a really fully fleshed out digital marketing team,
Mm-hmm.
you run the risk of even like your competitors happening to do something right or happening
Right.
to get a good content marketing engine running.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking about that, they're going to beat you everywhere that they can. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the biggest thing. And there's the risk of your competitors doing it right and you falling behind. There's also just the opportunity cost that is lost when you don't pursue, you know, an activity that could boost your revenue or even just your traffic or increase leads or increase the quality of the traffic that comes into the site. Um,
Yeah.
Pointing out here's what will happen if we don't do this is often a pretty useful tool as well.
And looking at all the channels and how much traffic and revenue is coming in from each of those, in my experience, the last couple of in-house jobs I've had, the last company I worked for was a multi-billion-dollar global company. I went the first 3 years that I worked there. Um, SEO was the number one driving channel, and it was an
Mm-hmm.
e-commerce company. It was the number one, even bigger than direct, right? And then
Yeah.
branding started happening. We had great branding teams, good things happening. Direct overtook what SEO was, but you looked at the every single channel, and it was direct, and it was SEO. Then it was paid advertising. Then it was social, and all of that. So if you're not focusing on SEO, you could be missing out on a huge chunk of
Mm-hmm.
revenue that could potentially change the outcome of your business. You
Yeah, for
mentioned this
sure.
before, looking at all of the channels. You mentioned this a minute ago that you said that it's not your SEO team here, your paid search team over there. that's not how it works anymore. So how can SEOs work with other teams and channels to one, better their marketing overall, but two, help make sure that all of it is considered in the company's goal?
I think the ways that we can work, especially with other digital marketing disciplines, are, those are all over the place. Like if we're thinking about creative, okay, we're putting images and video up on the site, we're making these really awesome looking graphics or whatever. SEO
Mm-hmm.
needs to be involved in that conversation for sure,
Yeah.
to make sure that anything that looks great is also crawling and index friendly.
Yeah.
With email, email tends to point back to more content on your website. We want to make sure that that's pointing to the right places, and that once
Yeah.
somebody reaches that piece of content that we're pointing to from that email newsletter or whatever it is, that they have a path to go somewhere next. They don't just bounce off the website after they've,
Mm-hmm.
read that article or whatever it is. I think that's SEO's responsibility. They should be working together there. And then paid search, I mean, you can really open up a whole can of worms once you start getting into those collaborations. The most
Yeah.
basic one just being, a keyword strategy sharing between the two halves, but there's so much more you can do there too. I would say that my sort of favorite example of this, though, and my kind of pet project that I've been speaking a lot about lately is
Mm-hmm.
how SEO partners with customer facing teams specifically to
Mm-hmm.
do a better job and make customer success and sales jobs easier too. So if you've got, say, a customer success team that talks to your customers all day every day, or even just a sales team that talks to prospects all day every day, those two sources of information are a gold mine for your
Yeah.
content strategy, for how you design your website, for your, what should be in your navigation and in your footer. I mean, you could base an entire strategy off of just talking to your customer teams on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Um, deciding what goes in your FAQs, what kind of help guides are needed, even just making the most popular content or the most needed content on your site easier to find. There's so much you can do there, and I think that's really a blind spot for a lot of SEOs. They don't
Mm-hmm.
spend time talking to teams outside of marketing about what they know that can help them do their jobs better.
It's almost like your own built-in people also say, right? Like
Yeah,
within your
exactly.
company. So
Yeah.
talking to call centers, talking to salespeople, also from just like maybe a non-human standpoint, looking at the feedback forum or if
Hmm.
you have a contact us page, you're a smaller company and people contact, um, you know, corporate or whatever, looking through those. We did that in the last company, and what we would do is we had the contact form come through, and we used AI to sort of filter it out and say
Yeah.
should go to this team, that team, what's the tone, and the SEO team took a lot of that, and they were able to build content around what was talked about very often
Hmm.
in that feedback forum. So I think that's a very valid point, especially talking to the humans, the human part of that, the sales team and call center and all of that. Really understanding they know the customers' problems and needs more probably than anyone else in the company because they hear it every single day.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, there really is no better source for that. And, if you don't have a sales team, if you don't have like a human customer facing team, like you said, there's other spots to look. There's your internal search logs as
Yeah.
well. So, what are people searching for most often?
Hmm.
Sometimes there are some gems you can pull out of there. Or if you've got like a chat bot on your site, you can pull those logs and look for themes in chat bot questions. If people are asking the same questions to your chat bot every single day, you should probably
Yeah.
answer that with some kind of content on the website that they can find themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the biggest place that this helps is, uh, for one thing, like getting to know who your customers are as people and how they talk, what kinds of things they care about, even outside of work or outside of the problems that they're trying to solve with your product. Um, what's their vibe, in
Yeah.
general can help you decide what tone and voice should I be using on the website? What opinions can I really lean into? How do I make my website a mirror for my customers so that they see themselves reflected in my product or on my site and they feel comfortable being there and they want to keep coming back.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to figure that out without hearing from your customers directly or hearing from the people who talk to them all day. We do a lot of guessing about that as SEOs, and I really think that's wasted time. We should be spending that time just going to the source and getting it straight.
Yeah, we always want to make database decisions, and
Yeah,
the
exactly.
data that we get through analytics or Search Console or some of these other tools sometimes can be skewed.
Hmm.
Sometimes, it doesn't tell the full story. So going
Yeah.
directly to the source, um, I think is a very valid point.
Yeah, and we rely so heavily on like our keyword research tools, our Ahrefs and our SEMrush and our Moz and
Yeah.
all of that, and like we I think we use those to the detriment of all of the other opportunities we have to find out that kind of information. I really think traditional keyword research should be a supplement to audience research of the kind that I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
Um, it helps, it's useful for sure, but it shouldn't be step one.
I think I actually saw a headline from Google that just came out today, basically kind of laughing at those audit tools, saying like,
Yeah.
"Hey, they don't actually do like you can't just hit export and send it to your client and like call it
Oh
good.
my
There
God.
needs to
But
be
so many
some."
agencies do. Speaking of
I
crappy
know,
agencies, that is
I
like,
know.
that's my favorite thing. We'll talk to a prospect that's like, oh yeah, well, we got this audit and it's literally just a download from Ahrefs.
Yeah,
It's like that's it. That's not a site audit.
for sure. And all it says is it's what it does though is it gets the emotions. It scares them. It says
Yeah,
you
sure.
have 1,000 broken links and
Hmm.
200 errors in this area, and then it scares them and they're like, okay, take care of it. By the end of their contract, they still haven't gone and fixed those errors because they're not really ranking factors.
Yes, exactly. And or they have and they haven't seen their traffic move an inch because like
Yeah,
your duplicate meta descriptions were never the problem. So,
yeah, yeah. That's it. Where your duplicate pages, your duplicate meta descriptions, your duplicate titles, like all of the basic errors that get popped out in
mhm.
those generic reports. And now, don't get me wrong. I think they're a good starting point. And I think for people
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
listening to this podcast, if you are a business owner that it is just you, and you don't know SEO well, it is a great starting point. Use those tools.
Totally. Yeah.
Use Google Search Consoles, probably better than any of the paid ones, from really understanding your data for free, at least.
Yeah.
Um, so I think some of the bigger companies overlook uh, this aspect of SEO, and maybe you can help me understand how you would approach this. But I think that SEO is a huge component to crisis management
Mhm.
and reputation management, right? Which I know that there are some companies who hire SEO people specifically to manage that.
Right.
What's your experience with that? And I guess could you use that as leverage to some of these C levels, saying like, hey, okay, we're gonna try to drive sales, but also if you don't get your brand on point, you don't take care of this, then when a crisis does come in, this is gonna outrank everything. Can we talk through that a little
Mhm.
bit?
Yeah, this reminds me of a really, really cool talk that I saw at Revenue Marketing Alliance conference a few years back. The guy who was the crisis management director for Princess Cruise Lines right when COVID broke out
Oh wow.
did a talk on. They had just launched a cruise ship off of,
Hmm.
I think, out of Tokyo, and so they were stuck in the water on this cruise ship, quarantined and unable to bring people back to land and just like they had to keep people there for I think like a month and they were
Oh
really only
yeah,
supposed to be
I
on it for
remember
like a
that.
week.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had to figure out, their communication strategy and how to take care of people and keep them entertained and just all this stuff. So he had a really,
Hmm.
really I mean, you're not going to hear about that from anybody else unless they've been through something like that. So,
Yeah.
and he and I got to talking about like they didn't really have an SEO person in charge of how they were going to handle that from like a online reputation management standpoint. Obviously, they were doing digital PR and stuff at the same time, but
Hmm.
I kept thinking about how if you had an SEO thinking about that and preparing for an event like that, you could create a basis of content from before that ever occurs that says even if it's just in your FAQs or something, what will you do if XYZ happens?
Hmm.
What happens in the event of blah blah blah, or even just here is our crisis management plan for a global pandemic outbreak or
Yeah,
something.
for
That's
sure.
pretty
Yeah.
specific, but um, just writing about the fact that you have one and that this is something that you're thinking about means that when
Hmm.
people are exploring your website, they will see, oh, I feel comfortable with this company. I feel comfortable trusting them with my money or my time or whatever because I can see that this is something that has occurred to them and that they're planning for.
Yeah.
Um, And, after the fact, I think it becomes even more important to have SEO involved in crisis communications, because people are going to Google,
Yep.
brand name, whatever thing just happened. And you want to control that narrative. You don't
Yeah.
want someone else to be outranking you for whatever terms they're looking for, right? So tackling it immediately from a content perspective, and I don't just mean on your website, but out in the world too, email, socials, all that stuff. Um, you really need to be thinking about, like, okay, what are people going to be looking for? How
Mhm.
do we make sure that we are the source that people find when they search for whatever, incendiary terms are going to come up around this, even if they're
Mhm.
unpleasant to talk about and think about
Yeah.
internally? You've got
Mhm.
to be thinking about that, so because someone else will if you don't.
Yeah.
And I think an SEO, a good smart SEO, is really the only type of person who's going to be able to help you, figure that out and target the right audience that way.
And being proactive is key there. Like if you're
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
proactive and it happens, you're not just gonna rank all of a sudden, right? You're not
Yeah.
just gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, there's a problem, let's go rank. There was one instance in a company that I've worked for where so it was a direct sales company, and so there were hundreds of thousands of people out there selling the product. And I managed the team that did the digital reputation management. And one of the areas that I think if you weren't in SEO, you wouldn't know this. If you're in PR, you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't, like, you do your job, but you wouldn't consider this, right? So what we ended up telling, because we know that on-page interactions affect SEO, click-through rates affect SEO, comments affect SEO, all of
Yeah.
that, like it affects it, right? And so one of the pieces of strategy that we recommended was we sent out communication to all the direct salespeople and said, and we what we did is we PDF'd the bad article and we sent it
Mm-hmm.
to them and we said, look at it here, just so you're aware. This is what's happening. Here's how we're addressing it. And we worked with the PR team that said, here's everything that's happening to fix
Yeah.
this, right? But we recommended don't go Google it, don't click on it, don't go, because what was happening is they were clicking on it, they were reading the whole thing, so they were on page for multiple minutes. They were going through the comments, and when people said, "Oh my gosh, what a bad company," they would
Mm-hmm.
respond and say, "Oh, we're a good company," and so the comments started growing and growing and growing. I'm
Right.
like, this will never leave the front page if y'all just
Yeah.
don't like stop talking about it. So understand, like, we're working through it. Here's what it is. We'll give you updates on it, but we can't have 400,000 people clicking on it, sharing it with their whole downline and network and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. So either way, there are things that SEOs think of like that
Mm-hmm.
PR people may not think of, and not to like downplay the importance of them, because we worked hand in hand. Like they led most of it. We would just be the more proactive side, try to rank for things that we knew were coming and stuff like that. But yeah, super super fun and interesting team to lead around crisis management, because sometimes
Yeah, for
there wasn't
sure.
a lot to do and sometimes it got real messy.
Yeah, it's a good example of like what I mean when I say SEO touches everything. You wouldn't, that's not really something that would come to mind for most folks, but like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
very important to have an SEO on your side. Or I always talk about having SEO in the room. SEO should be in the room for just about everything. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of bandwidth for one person to carry, but
Sure.
yeah, they should really be considered in all things. Anything that touches your website needs to go through the SEO.
Yeah, including stuff like sustainability,
Hmm.
diversity, ethics, any of that like that's going to be on the website that you're going to stand behind.
Yeah.
Talking about sustainability is not probably not going to drive a sale, but there are a lot of people out there who look at that as like the strength of your brand. If you're willing
Right.
to have, if you have a foundation and you have, these philanthropic efforts to make the world better and try to be more sustainable in your products and packaging and stuff like that. There is a group of people who look at that and say, I'm going to buy from you because of that, right? But
Yeah. Right.
when you're going through the checkout process, you're not like, oh, I like this product. Let me go and check and see if they have this.
Yeah. But it also, it lends this air of, I mean, even if, I mean, we should all be caring about sustainability and diversity and all those things, obviously. But
Yeah.
even if you aren't the kind of person who goes and seeks out that information, I do feel like seeing it on someone's website lends this air of like, oh, they're established. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They've got it together. Um, So, and and of course, there are some companies and some customer bases where like your customers are going to care more about that than others in some industries or some products or whatever.
Yeah.
This is another reason to be in good contact with your sales and customer teams. They can tell you uh, what cultural or what societal, I guess, concerns your customers care about the most and which ones they really don't care about that much.
Hmm.
And that helps you know what content to showcase, what reviews to showcase on your site,
Yeah.
how much of your time to focus around, say, your sustainability initiatives or your philanthropy or whatever it is that you do. And again, that's something that like you would not know where to land on that if it weren't for your customer teams.
Okay, so if I'm an SEO out there, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, or if I'm business owner, I think you can look at it from both perspectives. If I'm an SEO trying to convince the business owners, and if I'm a business owner thinking, okay, I probably should listen to my SEO when they come to me and say, here's what you need to do. I think there's
Mhm.
both perspectives on this. So we've talked about the politics of things, the looking at the right data, what you're going to miss out on, doing SEO for things that may not convert but could potentially help your brand, being proactive on, reputation management. What else did we miss from either side that could potentially help get SEO more involved in, more proactively involved in the overall game plan?
Product.
Okay.
So SEO's involvement with product, I think, is also often overlooked. I think the bare minimum here is your product team says we're releasing this new feature next month. Let's write an article about it. Okay, great. But if
Yeah.
you're again in the room from an earlier point, you can say, all right, we're going to start helping you plan for this product release that we know is coming next year or 2 years from now or whatever, by beginning to build our authority in this particular space. So maybe this is something that, an entirely new capability that you're releasing, say, in like a product update or something like that.
Hmm.
You can't just, it's like you said before, you can't just release it and hope to rank.
Yep.
You really need to start building up because these things take time, as we're so fond of saying. You really need to start building up your authority in that space long before, that landing page or whatever goes live. Uh, I think we too often think about it after the fact and go, all right, well, now we can do this new thing that our product couldn't do before. Let's start, building our marketing campaigns around it. That's backwards. You should be releasing it once you are already established in that space, getting people excited about this thing that's coming. Hearing brand X saying like, um, we know about this, this, and this. We have the authority to talk about this. And then by the time you release that feature, then your audience is going to go, oh, yeah, I know they know about this thing. I've been
Hmm.
hoping that they would release something like this. Um, and, Google knows that too by that time.
Yeah.
So it's like putting the cart before the horse a lot of times, I think. And we need to be thinking about it the other way. So yeah, I think feature releases like that, but also just, the same kind of thing, like products are hard to use sometimes. Products are hard to explain. People have a lot of questions about them. And
Yeah.
so, again, being proactive about the kinds of things that you expect customers to care about once this change is made, or um, once a product is updated or something like that. Knowing what those are going to be means you get ahead of those customer questions and concerns. Uh, and again, just be proactive about it instead of having to be reactive, and you're not guessing, you're talking to the product people about it directly. So, like, all right, this is what's going to happen here.
And I think that goes for both physical products as well as digital
Yeah,
products, right?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if you have a physical product, especially coming up on like Black Friday and holidays and stuff, like you need to be, you don't get into November and say, okay, what should we do?
Yeah.
Like that's just not how it works, right? And with the digital products, especially if it's a new feature or something great that's really going to change things, like getting ahead of that, answering the questions, putting up the FAQ, sending out the emails, everything kind of combines together. So there is the excitement when you do launch, and there's a big subset of people who are already educated and already
Hmm.
know what they're getting into, jump into it. I love that. Okay, so outside of product, is there anything else that we missed?
Gosh, I'm sure there is. And someone's screaming at their radio right now saying, "You forgot about this thing."
I can think of one. I can think of one other, and it kind of goes along with product, but the development team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. How could I forget?
So they're brilliant in what they do, but if you say, "Hey, go draw this line," they'll go draw a line, and you go back and you're like, "Oh, I thought it was going to be a blue line," and you're like, "You just said a line,
Hmm.
so I just drew a line."
Hmm.
Like you have to be very specific in what to tell them, and a lot of times if you have your digital product managers working with the marketing team and the development team, I think they're the glue in the middle that could help fix that and understand what the
Yeah.
customer actually wants, what color of line, how long the line should be, what should it do when it's touch, what should it do when it's wet, what should it do, like all of these questions, right? Because what happens is a lot of times they'll release a product or an update on the website, and it'll completely break all of your redirects, or it'll
Yeah.
break something else. And so having the SEO team involved in the digital development of your website, I think, is key. If only to just make sure it doesn't mess things up. There
Right.
are things that could potentially be better. Hey, well, there's an opportunity to add some schema on this page, or to do whatever else on this page that we couldn't do through the CMS. So while you're doing this project, let's go ahead and do that, right? So development's another one.
Yeah, I'll just add about development that we like to frame that relationship as like considering SEO governance.
Mm,
Not every
mm-hmm,
client has a big dev team, but when they
right.
do, when they're a bit bigger of an organization or a more technologically advanced organization, I guess, um, we we might not, be in there doing things like fixing canonical tags or fixing pagination or whatever. Odds are they've got that a little more ironed out, but
Yeah.
so, we might say, well, how do we pitch our services to this company that's already got a really robust dev team? They seem to know what they're doing. We will tell them, it's a good idea. I keep using this phrase, but it's a good idea to have an SEO in the room on your side as a partner for SEO governance. So if
Yeah.
you are building something new on the site, if your dev team is undertaking this project, especially if it's a big one, um, the SEO can help you, your agency partner, your in-house SEO or whatever can help you uh, lay out your SEO requirements for that change, for that
Mm-hmm.
project, whatever it is, so that they know, like you said, they're at least checking the boxes of, okay, did I pay attention to this? Did I make sure that I do this way so that it doesn't break anything? And yeah, this like forming that relationship early, I think, is really important, and especially forming a fruitful, non-combative relationship with your devs so that they don't feel like they're getting bossed around, but rather, I'm just trying to help you do your job better and help you become a more SEO conscious developer. I think that's a good way
Absolutely.
to put it.
Well, Kavi, I've really enjoyed chatting with you and learning from you. I think this is going to be a very important episode for both the business owners and VPs, as well as the up and coming marketers. I think that there is a lot to being an SEO and convincing your C levels
Mm-hmm.
of the budget of what next steps are, of taking care of crisis management and product launches and stuff like that. And it's things that they don't think of, that as an SEO it's your responsibility to bring to their
Yeah.
attention and really help them understand why SEO is important. And I think you've laid out a lot of really good topics and parts that that these SEOs can consider when putting their presentation together. And hopefully, crossing our fingers, you get to keep doing the SEO for that company, and they get on board and see it as an important channel in all of the digital marketing channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I had one piece of advice for SEOs looking for a way to get your foot in the door, or at least get yourself taken more seriously at your company, make sure you have data to back up your
Yeah.
recommendations. If you don't, no one is listening to you. And I
Yeah.
think also, if you do have the data to back it up and you have pointed out all of these things and you've said, here's all the ways that my job, my work is going to improve other areas of the company and help us reach our business goals, and they're still not receptive to it, you should
Yeah.
probably find a different job. You're going to
Yeah.
be fighting an uphill battle the entire time you're employed there. So I know the job market's tough, but
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
it's really important to work in a place that values what SEO is and is receptive to it.
Yeah. Totally agree. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you taking the time to come and jump on the show and talk with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. And to everyone else who's listening out there, we'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.